Okay, so thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Welcome to OneQuantum Africa weekly meetings. My name is Farai Majandu. I'm the president for OneQuantum Africa. So today we are going to hear about quantum technology and information security. And this presentation is going to be done by Stiepan Kovac. He's the CEO and co-founder of QR Crypto. .ch, which is a company based in Switzerland. And yeah, that's really going to be an exciting presentation, one that many of you are interested in. I know people, we have caught on the cryptocurrency buzz and get questions about what is going to happen to blockchain. Is the right guy to ask. So yeah, we really are glad he could do this for us. I'm going to tell you a bit more about him later on when I introduce him at length. So generally, we always have a question about why quantum technologies are important in Africa. Why should we be worried, or why should we care? Why should we be paying attention? So quantum technologies, excuse me for that. Quantum technologies have got far-reaching consequences in many other spaces in industry. And for that reason, in one way or another, each and every one of us is going to come across them in some way. Some of the people are already coming across them, like in quantum sensing, in metrology. We are already beginning to realize value out of those technologies in terms of precision and accuracy. However, in computing, our devices are still very much limited in terms of capabilities, but they are catching up very fast. I want to believe there's a lot of development that is happening in terms of research, in terms of the devices. So it's very important that if you're interested in the sensing, in the processing and communication of information in one way or another, you are going to come across quantum technologies in one way or another. Generally about OneQuantum is a global platform that brings communities which work in quantum tech together. So we bring people who are interested and active in quantum tech together in local communities, just like what we are doing in Africa. And we also give these people access to global community through the events that we host, through programs that we offer, like mentoring, and through opportunities to develop a career in quantum. And we also work with the members across the board on projects that are of interest and that are relevant to their communities. Some of you may already know, we are going to host OneQuantum Africa Summit and Career Fair on May 12 and 13. And this event is going to start at 2 p.m. Central African time, or GMT +2, which is SAST as well. So we hope to see all of you, and please invite all your colleagues. It's a good opportunity for beginners and even experts to come and learn about the quantum tech ecosystem, what leading companies in the space are planning and what are they working on, what are the developments they're seeing, what may come next. And we've got great speakers from the continent. We have been leading quantum tech research and businesses and investments here in Africa. We also have got international speakers who are going to weigh in and help us, wrap our head around developments in quantum. So it's something that I challenge you to attend. No expertise is required. We are going to have learning sessions, easy going for anybody getting started, and nobody should feel that it is going to be a place they are going to be uncomfortable. And we've got a community as well that's going to be there to connect with you, to collaborate, to exchange during one-to-one sessions, which are aimed to make you network. And these are some of the sponsors that are going to, that have made this possible for us. And we're still talking to a lot more, but we are grateful to Honeywell, to the Unitary Fund, to Oxford Instruments, to Code Quanta, who have come on board to help us make this event possible and a success. And this poster that I've shared here, which is beautiful and it's got details, has been done by our friends in Kenya, who are also helping us to move this conversation forward in Africa. So I'm really grateful for all the support that we are getting. And there are individuals who have also come on board to support us. Some of them we have requested that we don't mention them by name, but all the same, I want you to know that the individuals who are coming through for us to support this initiative as well. Well, we begin our mentorship program for the community this week. You may receive an email, or you'll be receiving an email soon. We're still appealing to mentors. We have run short of mentors. We've got a lot of mentees, and they keep on increasing, and we need your help to just share experiences and lead a lot of these leaders and enthusiasts towards a successful career in quantum and in technology. So if you're interested, please get in touch with me. I will share details on how you can sign up as a mentor. If you're still interested in mentorship as an NT, that's okay. Submit your application. Figure out how to make that happen for you. So these are other communities, and we've got a Women in Quantum chapter. I think they're already putting together their 5th summit. Most of you may know about it. This is open to attend to all who are interested, and we'll be sharing details as we go. We've got a chapter in Nepal, got a startup chapter, and here today we are on the African chapter. You can connect with me to move this conversation forward. If you want to get involved, if you can come through and share your goals with me, we can figure out how we can work together. Quantum needs everybody of us to come together and to move it forward. So we are always open to hear ideas, to get people who want to come and contribute as well. Let me introduce Stiepan. So Stiepan Kovac is an MSc in ICT security and is the group CEO of ITK.Swiss. He's also the CEO of QR Crypto and then a manager at QRC AAA LLC. He works on cryptography, offering unique symmetric post-quantum crypto for encrypted and integrity protected IPTV, 5G, safe electronic payments, and beyond. Stiepan is an expert on Global Cybersecurity Index on behalf of ISO, which is also on behalf of ISO and the IEC SC27 Cybersecurity, Information Security and Privacy Protection Standard. He is also a standardization expert and editor of ITU TX.1197 guidelines on criteria for selecting crypto algorithms for IPTV and ISO IEC 9797-1 IT security techniques, message authentication, and an initiator of the CE Unix.us project. Sorry for the tongue twisting, but well, he's going to unpack all these things for us and tell us why it is important that we pay attention and what is their impact in our day-to-day lives, given that we are now so much a connected world which thrives and relies on communication. Aside from his main professional activities, Mr. Kovac is an invited lecturer in the University of Geneva for quantum informatics and post-quantum cryptography. So thank you very much, Stiepan, for coming through. Before I bring you on board next week on the same time, because our weekly meetings are going to coincide with the summit. So we are going to to transition into the summit starting at 2 p.m. on Wednesday next week. So that covers our slot for weekly meetings. So our weekly meetings will resume the week after on the 19th. And I will be sharing details about those via our newsletter. So yes, I'll share details on how we can sign up to the newsletter and also RSVP for the summit, and share that link with other people as well. Bring your friends. Let's all learn about quantum and the potential for quantum in Africa and where we are and what we need to do. So with that, I'll stop sharing my screen and allow Stiepan to come through and take this presentation forward. While
Thank you, Farai.
Hello, yes, Stiepan.
Hello, Farai. How are you?
Good. I can hear you very well. Thank you very much for doing this for us and for joining us. You can start your talk while I get the slides to come up. Unfortunately, I have to do them on another device, not this one, so that my network
No issue. Thank you so much for the kind invitation.
Sure. So you can take it forward. I'll be sharing the slides soon.
Good. So as introduced by Farai, I'm the CEO of the ITK.Swiss group, our main operational branch being QR Crypto. It is all based in Switzerland, but we have branch offices across the world, and notably in South Africa. So we have QRC MEA, which is our fully owned subsidiary in Johannesburg, represented by Miss Anna Banimo, who participated to some of your previous events. And our main aim and goal is to make mobile money quantum safe, as it pertains to the African market in particular, and communications, mobile or fixed, quantum safe in general. So part of that is setting standards for the future to make this possible. And that is why we joined the ITUT, first as ITK and then as QR Crypto in 2017. And since then, made quite a lot of progress, including publication of the standard X.1197 that has been mentioned by Farai, which is about IPTV, but as well work item, which is currently a technical report, which has been established last year, so by some other colleagues in the world, and where we have contributed some content as to how to make precisely mobile transfers, which currently are occurring mostly using USSD messages, which are not encrypted at all, quantum safe. So from no security at all to a security that will resist even against tomorrow's quantum computers, knowing that it is expected, according to what IBM's then research chief and now CEO, Mr. Krishna, said in 2018 that by 2023 they would eventually come with a commercial quantum computer that will break existing cryptography. And in the meantime, he became the CEO. In late 2020, IBM made another announcement with regards to the same, which was even more official than the previous one, and where they say that they would have 1,000 plus qubit computer by 2023. So basically, they are sticking to the plan. Whether it's 2023 or 2025, it will be hard to tell. The bets are open, but one thing is certain is that it's coming, especially that IBM is one of the fathers, let's say, of a commercial quantum computing, but far from being the only actor. And in particular, there are very active startups in that area. Two of them, which I happen to know, are IonQ and Alice and Bob, but certainly there are many others. And they all have also pretty aggressive timelines as to the time they think they will release commercially available quantum computers that will crack most, if not all, existing cryptography, which is, as you can assume, a big challenge because each and every communication that we are having is using cryptography or should be using it today. Well, there are some exceptions, like Zoom, for instance. We are using a Zoom call, and since I'm calling via the phone in order to avoid the insecurity of having to install the Zoom app, it means that the communication is most likely not encrypted. So sorry, by the way, for closing this break in security, but that's the only way I can reasonably use Zoom, unfortunately, because of the lack of security of Zoom itself. But that gives an idea of all the implications of cryptography in the modern day world, since everybody is zooming. It even became a verb every day. So yes, we do it, but actually it's very difficult to do it securely. And by the way, there are other platforms available. We happen to have one, which is AAA-meet.in, which is available for the world, although it's based in India, as we started there because they felt most urgently the need for a secure Zoom alternative because of geopolitical reasons. I won't dive into details here. So back to the core subject. Could you display the slides, Farai, or not yet?
Yes, I have the slides on. Can you see them?
I can't because I'm joining via the phone, but very good. So now that we have the slides, you can go directly to the second slide, so after the title slide. And so here we speak about the essence of our activity, which is about cryptography. And so recognizing that technology is evolving, pervasive and ubiquitous, we have positioned ourselves in the provisioning of cryptographic solutions, and in particular quantum-resistant cryptography that are applied to many sectors, starting from aerospace through mobile telecoms, secure mobile banking and payments, likewise critical infra and defense. And the technology innovations have to be enabled by robust security systems so that the consumer and simply user trust is maintained, and also to enhance the brand reputation in the case of commercial use. And so as quantum computing capabilities, which to summarize it, will be billions of times faster than existing computers when it comes to cracking encryption, obviously pose a big threat to current crypto systems. Our patented encryption technology is quantum safe, and as well it is energy and environment efficient, which has some added benefits because you don't have so much possibility of doing a side channel attack for those who are acquainted with the subject on SIM cards that are enabled with our technology, whereas with all current SIM cards, you don't have to wait for quantum computers. Unfortunately, they are crackable right now using side channel attacks. So this is another issue that I don't mention explicitly in the slides, but that is highly improved by using our technology. And so we provide 5G and 6G interoperability. As you may have heard, there is already some 6G early projects in the US and China notably, and it integrates extended AES, which is now a trademark in the US, EAES, as a principal enabler to do that. And so our specialization is the quantum-resistant symmetric cryptography, as well as secure video conferencing, which I mentioned briefly before. Now on to the details of the problem, which interests us here in particular in the Quantum Africa group. OneQuantum Africa group. So the problem is the so-called quantum apocalypse, with quantum computers posing a significant threat to modern cryptography. The two most widely adopted public key cryptography systems, which is the RSA and the elliptic curves, and likewise here there is a mention of Diffie-Hellman, will be trivially breakable by sufficiently large general-purpose quantum computers using Shor's algorithm. So all these that we have mentioned. And with Grover's algorithm, the symmetric cipher security, such as the classical AES, is unfortunately affected as well. Namely, it is halved according to the NIST intermediary report on post-quantum cryptography 8105. So NIST is, by the way, the American institution in charge of standardizing new asymmetric standards in the field. And the AES alone, so still that same algorithm that we mentioned last, was considered to have 250 billion benefit to society in 2018 by NIST. And so this can easily be extrapolated to say that by 2023, this will either be at least 4 trillion, but it could as well vanish if we don't do something to make it resistant to quantum computers. And the effect on security of this is so significant that the recent report on quantum computing, for which we provide reference later, by the US National Academy of Science, highlighted the urgency in one of its key findings. So even if a quantum computer that can decrypt current cryptographic ciphers is more than a decade off, it's maybe only available by 2030, and that's even less certain today. But even if it's the case, the hazard of such a machine is high enough, and the time frame for the transition is sufficiently long and uncertain that we have to prioritize the development, the standardization, and deployment of post-quantum cryptography, which is a big name for calling cryptography that will resist such computers, as it is critical for minimizing the chance of a potential security and privacy disaster. There is no other word. And by the way, here is also mentioned the opinion of IBM's then research chief and now CEO, Arvind Krishna, in 2018, which stated that in 2023, the first quantum computers able to crack existing cryptography should be commercially available. And again, this is one leading company in the field, and there are a few others, plus those that we don't speak about. And so now on to the next slide, which is about the solutions. Forward-thinking solutions that are energy efficient, quantum safe, 5G plus compatible, but by the way, backwards compatible with 4G as well, and enable fixed mobile convergence as a means to make communications and public infrastructure, likewise mobile transactions, future-proof, fortunately exist. And as it pertains to symmetric cryptography, we have both the honor and the difficulty to say that we are the only ones with a commercially available solution that answers and that caters to this problem, providing dynamic quantum safety, so namely by enabling SIM or smart cards to be quantum resistant and thereby offer quantum resistant payment, which in essence makes mobile money, as is very popular in Africa, whatever the exact name is for specific operators, secure with EAS, which is part of that work in the ITUT, by the way, on making such mobile transaction systems secure, and where there is explicit reference to our technology in the current version of the technical report on the same subject. It is studied by the ITUT study group number 11 currently. And by the way, there is the key feature of 5G compatibility of such solutions that we offer, meaning that it works on the networks of the future, but it is also backwards compatible, by the way. So that's very important, both by the fact it can be integrated into 4G networks, but also by the fact at the very hardware level, since the core of the EAS solution is still the AES core loop, other aspects have been enhanced, but not the core. It means that if you have existing server hardware, so here we don't speak about quantum computers, but the existing computers that are in the mobile network operator premises, for instance, those servers can run EAS with only a minor impact on the performance because the core loop is the same. So that means that there is no big capex involved if those operators deploy it, which we are very hopeful that will happen still this year in Africa. We are in contact with some of the big ones. And also, it has recently become a good practice, so the SIM card itself, without specific reference to EAS, in ITUT X.1811, which is for quantum safe 5G. And so there, if you want to be the most secure possible, you would have to use our SIM card. It means it's not an obligation, but essentially for all sectors that require the most security, such as you can think of autonomous cars, hyper-frequency trading, and so on and so forth, you would certainly want to have the best possible security. And so, let's say by default, you would be highly encouraged to use the patent that is tied to this X.1811 ITUT recommendation that has just been approved and which happens to be ours. And we are, of course, happy to provide it and to license it to all the interested companies, which, by the way, are by no means limited to mobile network operators these days, because as you may have heard, for instance, in Germany, Audi, the car manufacturer, they deployed their very own private 5G network. So one would imagine that once this becomes mainstream, and well, I would say even before, but at the very least, once this becomes mainstream, they would want it to make it the safest and secure most. So that's typically a use case that our technology enables. Now on to the next slide. So we there focus a bit more on banks because we believe that this is a sector that needs it perhaps even more than all the others, but up until now have been sleeping a little bit on their laurels. So the banks around the world have great responsibility. That is, by the way, the slide number 5, because I don't see the slide, so please display it if it's not the case. The banks around the world have great responsibility as money issuers. In many countries, it's even the private banks that, for instance, UBS in Switzerland or other big names that print the money, basically. You have bills that come out of such banks, in a sense. One can think certainly of other examples. So banks serve the nation's lifeblood, the finances, and banks also have the leverage to bring best protection to the public, which perhaps some in other institutions, at least private institutions, don't have. And there it is very important and key to have quantum safe networks, first and foremost. By securing the whole network and beyond, including the edge, if we think about the particular case of mobile payments, and in particular still in Africa, where you have someone in a village that needs to receive a payment and is very remote and so on and so forth. Still, you want this to be very secure, because especially someone who is very remote in a village, he or she cannot afford to lose his or her money because of some ICT security issue or lack of protection. As well, there is the importance of major banks to be first to market with such solutions. And so with the first implementation of its kind, banks can certainly use that as a competitive edge over other banks that may still be sleeping again on their laurels. As to the patented SIM that I mentioned before, so that is very specific to solving the problem of securing mobile transfers. Likewise, 5G, which if you look today, make most of the world's current security issues, because you want to have secure transfers, especially in these times of lockdowns and so on and so forth. And today it's not limited anymore to Africa or developing countries. In Switzerland, mobile payment has seen an uptake as well over the last year at least. And it needs basically to be secure, but as it is now, as it is deployed now, in most cases it is not. There is either some level of security or no security at all. Same with 5G, but there we speak more about tomorrow, let's say, because 5G deployments are not yet so commonplace all across the world, even though there is more and more of it. And there, obviously, there is the big challenge of making it secure. We even saw how this has been very politicized over the last year. But still the challenge remains, because on the security side, before that ITUT recommendation that I mentioned before, which has just been approved, X.1811, basically with some minor differences, but still the security of 5G, at least as it pertains to symmetric cryptography, which is our specialty, was essentially the same, essentially a copy-paste from what you have in 4G. And there are some reasons for that, by the way. So in 2019, the ETSI 3GPP, which is the biggest international standardization body, which is dealing only with 3G and its successors, including 5G, they took a strategic decision not to move yet to stronger cryptography for 5G, because at the time they were not aware of our solution, and using the existing solutions, it was not so interesting from a cost-benefit analysis perspective to make a migration, because using non-improved symmetric encryption technologies and just making them a bit stronger with a bit larger key size would not actually solve the issue. And that is, in essence, to summarize it and to not take too much of everybody's valuable time, why they didn't change yet. And so the ITUT then came and provided basically this alternative possibility, which is now embodied in a published standard, and again where our solution is there as a good practice, meaning that it is essentially the practice to use for making 5G quantum safe, because without it, it can have some maybe very limited degree of resistance, but in the essence, it doesn't for several reasons, which in essence pertain to the level of entropy provided by existing so-called legacy solutions, which doesn't really attain the level that would be required for quantum safety. So whether we speak of the Zook 256, which is the Chinese, or was at least the Chinese contender to AES, to normal AES in this space, it has been shown by Ericsson as not being quantum safe, as not having 256-bit entropy, and even not being safe in the classical setting, by the way, due to some other reasons. Later in 2020, they showed that. So basically that was out. And coming to the normal AES, well, with 256-bit keys, it has some limited degree of quantum resistance, and by the way, it is supported as well by our patent. But with that being said, it doesn't solve a key issue, which is nowadays, without even waiting for quantum computers using AES, which are the side channel attacks, which are those that enable to extract the key material from a SIM card, in this case, to keep on the same example, at a relatively short distance. But that could as well be done programmatically. As you know, today many computers and devices get hacked, and it is quite easy to imagine that your connected printer next to your phone will get hacked and eventually serve as an intermediary point to attack your phone, for instance. So that's not science fiction. There are things happening every day, and basically all the connected devices that don't have built-in strong security are at risk and need some upgrades. So that's some very critical situation actually that the world is in today, and especially with the tendency not to upgrade legacy devices or devices that don't have a high price tag. We can think of feature phones, for instance. It is very unlikely that feature phones would get some security upgrade. Even low-end Android smartphones, which are very popular in developing countries and even here, don't get any upgrade. So basically, that creates a sort of digital divide if nothing is done to upgrade their security. On the other hand, hopefully there is the possibility with our technology as well, by changing or complementing, in the case of dual SIM devices, the SIM card, to sensibly increase the level of security, at the very least as it pertains to mobile transactions, if not as well for voice and other applications. That really depends on each model, etc. But this is to say that by doing so, the very essence of security, which is in principle, aside from physical security, financial security today, is preserved thanks to this technology. So next time you speak to a chief executive of a mobile network operator, tell them you should implement that, else we are not protected. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Stiepan. I guess the 50th slide was the last one, right? So slide
yes,
number 5.
That is correct. That's the last slide. And I could go on for hours on the subject, which is a subject I like, but I imagine you have some time constraints as well. So that's why I sent you a short presentation, and I hope that's okay. And I'm of course open to all questions.
Sounds good. Thank you very much for that. So yes, thank you for your presentation. Really informative and insightful, and it makes all of us worried, of course, that you're joining off my phone and we're on Zoom and we're comfortable here. But that's okay.
Maybe if I may suggest one thing, because maybe people don't have directly the question, or they are thinking how they will word it and so on and so forth. So maybe you can just display again the first slide of the presentation, because there is my email address, so that people can also reach via email later.
It's okay. Let me go back to the first slide. Okay, yes, I am showing your first slide now. People can get your details. So, would you mind perhaps to talk briefly about quantum technologies and blockchain? What is the issue about? I always come across articles that talk about that. What is the issue?
Oh yes, blockchain. That's also an interesting point, even though it's there is more talk than actual implementations in general. But indeed, that's also an area where there are a few challenges to make it ready for the future, and namely the signatures that are used in most current blockchains are based on elliptic curve cryptography. And unfortunately, the types of elliptic curve cryptography that are used in those cases are not quantum safe. There is some subclass, very specific subclass of ECC, elliptic curve cryptography, based on isogenies that is thought to be quantum safe, but that's not what is used. So basically, what is currently used in most blockchains, including the most well-known ones, for signatures, for transaction signatures, which obviously, even if you don't know blockchain, you will understand that who signs the transaction is quite important, is not quantum safe. So that means if nothing is done to upgrade these systems by 2023, 2025, or whenever this actually hits the market, it will all fall in the water, which is quite interesting given the billions of speculative money that is injected in such systems, which, by the way, have also some other issues, such as the concentration of mining power, which, if too concentrated in one entity's hands, can enable manipulation and even destruction of the system, even though the last eventuality is perhaps not the most likely, because such entity would rather not destruct their money core, but the risk of manipulation, on the contrary, is very real. So as to diminish the risks of all these worst-case scenarios regarding blockchain, I had the chance to work on DIN specifications. It's a German norm. As a Swiss company, as basically we were the only ones who could provide actual insights on this topic, so we were invited as a Swiss company to contribute to the DIN spec 4997, which is called Blockchain Privacy by Design. And you can find it online. You just have to register on the editor's website. It's beuth.de, beuth.de. And there are several recommendations made so as to make blockchains the most secure possible and privacy respecting as well, since that's a key aspect of both German and European legislation, but I know South African one as well, with the POPI Act. And actually, South African legislation, at least on paper, is even stronger than the European one, because if it were fully applied, people like the owner of Zoom or Facebook could end up in jail, because it has jail sentences for breaching the law. So with that text, the DIN spec 4997, we make it possible to have blockchain. So, by the way, I'm not only author, but I participated very actively to the part that is properly on cryptography. You can make blockchains privacy respecting, which means you will not breach such laws, and also very secure. And one key challenge that is basically why they needed us is how to store some private data on a blockchain. Because, as you may have heard, in the EU there is the General Data Protection Regulation, which has the so-called right to be forgotten. It means that you have some information published about you on the internet, and tomorrow you don't want it to be published anymore because of safeguarding your privacy. And so you have the right in Europe to ask this to be removed. The problem with blockchain is that it's almost impossible. Once it's on a blockchain, it is one of the key features, by the way, of blockchains that, in principle, they are immutable, even though in some ISO meetings there are some discussions around that, and some people who would like that to change. But basically, as it stands, blockchain technology as they stand, blockchains are immutable. So it's almost incompatibility by definition with the right to be forgotten. And how to solve that? So what we propose is a very pragmatic approach, and which has been retained in the DIN specification 4997, is to use strong symmetric encryption of any personal data if you actually have to put some personal data on a blockchain. Of course, there are cases of blockchain applications where maybe you don't need to put any personal data, but on the other hand, especially as we think about health applications of blockchain, which have the chance to become increasingly popular these days, it's hard to think that they would not contain any personal data. So by encrypting first this data with the strongest possible encryption, symmetric encryption mainly, and by keeping good custody of the key that enables that encryption, the data subject, so you and me, could be able to entrust some personal data on the blockchain without having the risk of never being able to get it back in a way or delete it. Namely, he or she would not be able to physically delete it, because that would be against the principles of the immutability of most blockchains that exist today, and which is one of the main selling points, by the way, of blockchain, that you cannot fiddle very easily with the system. But on the other hand, that person could delete the key. And again, if the custody of the key was handled properly, if it was not stored on insecure mediums, and if it was not shared with people who should not have access to it, then we can guarantee that the data, once the key is destroyed, cannot be recovered, because even the strongest quantum computers of tomorrow will not be able to crack it. And that's the unique selling point of what we are providing, by the way, as it is applied, as it can be applied, to blockchain. And it's perhaps one of the most telling illustrations, because of solving such a difficult challenge in GDPR, which is the right to be forgotten in the context of blockchain. And so if that can be solved, basically it can as well solve many other things, such as the ones I have been presenting, because I believe those are more directly interesting everyday life subjects in Africa, the mobile transfers. And as I mentioned before, here as well, because more and more people, including myself, use mobile payment technology. But knowing that these are, as they stand, not secure, or at the very least not secure enough. And well, at least in the case of what I'm using, I can reasonably rely on some insurance that if anything goes wrong, probably the insurance will reimburse my money, because still it's tied to a bank. But if you put yourself in the shoes of someone who doesn't have a bank account and just has some prepaid card of a mobile network operator, if that person loses his or her money, I'm quite doubtful that he or she will have any means to get that money back. Because one, it will be very, very hard to prove what actually happened, and two, we are speaking of prepaid. So basically, even in developed countries, prepaid customers are not being treated well, as compared to the non-prepaid customers. And I know for a fact that there is a difference in treatment in the customers of some mobile network operators in African countries and between African countries with regards to the treatment of their customers. So we are speaking of the same brand, which I won't name, in Europe. And I saw it with my own eyes, with recommendations like don't upgrade, don't make security upgrades because it will eat up your bandwidth. So save your bandwidth credits and don't upgrade. That's totally counterproductive as it pertains to cyber security. So those are very complex challenges, and we provide a rather simple and elegant solution to it. So thank you, Farai, again, by the way, for raising the question of blockchain, because I believe it's a really, really good point.
Thank you very much. So the floor is open. If you've got any questions to Stiepan, please feel free to unmute and come through. I know he talked about things that are closer home and that are, we are in touch with in Africa as well. So yes, Abdul. Oh, Stanley. It's you, Stanley. Okay. You can unmute yourself.
Hi.
Yes, thank you.
Here is Stanley from Bolivia. Hi. Well, first of all, thanks for the nice presentation that you give us. Really is so much value for me, and I think for the rest of us. Here a little question. What are the challenges to move to the banks for propose this kind of technology that you noticed to this moment? Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question. So at the present time, the challenges that we see in Europe, to be very precise, and generally speaking as well, in standardization of such related technology and security related to banking transactions, is that there is a mix of lack of awareness and accountability, where unfortunately the job of actually having solutions in place to protect the customers is not really being done, or at the very least not sufficiently. And that's quite worrisome, since we are speaking about how our money is handled. And here again, about banks, not about mobile transactions using prepaid cards. So this is to say that even in the case of classical banking, well, of course, there are the insurances, and eventually you will get back your money thanks to an insurance. Thanks God, if possible. But it doesn't solve the actual problem. And once there are too many such cases, probably even the insurance will not be so keen on covering it all. And as we can see with the statistics, the cyber attacks are ever increasing. We are in a situation where countries are fighting each other using cyber attacks. So it's really, really critical that the security of banking, all the way to mobile transactions, but starting as well from classical standard banking, is made more secure. And to do that, there are several ways. Concretely, we are working. I am myself representing Switzerland as its representative for cryptography, for financial cryptography, in the Technical Committee 68 of ISO and the SC2 Working Group 11, which is dedicated to this matter. And unfortunately, it's not a public forum, so will not be a public discussion, but eventually some outcomes will be published this week on Friday, if I'm not mistaken. We will have a very important discussion around the subject, as there are basically so to speak, two camps fighting each other. One which is to say, oh, it's still okay, we have enough security, we don't need to move, and we just want to enjoy our retirement. I'm kidding a little bit, but that's almost the thing. And on the other hand, people who, from all ages, by the way, who realize the danger of what is here, and even more of what is coming tomorrow, and are saying, yes, we should really do something serious to improve the security of financial transactions and institutions all over the world, since there we are speaking at the ISO level. So I'm hopeful that eventually this will move in the right direction. By the way, if some of you have access to those standardization committees, you are more than welcome to participate. So again, we are speaking of ISO TC 68 Working Group 11. And although they happen to be recruiting a new convener for the group, and I happen to have presented myself as a possible candidate with Switzerland's approval, with Switzerland's support. So, of course, it would be most welcome if your national country delegations to ISO TC 68 could support my proposal, because what I want to do is to lead that group in a new direction, which will actually make finances secure and without forgetting anyone, because we are really as secure as the weakest link in our chain, to take again the blockchain parallel, and even if it's not a blockchain, it's the same. So we really need to improve everybody's financial and related digital security if we want to have a functioning world now and tomorrow. Thank you again for everything, and I will soon have to leave the conversation, but I'm very open to have questions via email, because I will have another meeting at 4 p.m. Swiss or South African time, which leaves us only 2 minutes.
Really appreciate it, Stiepan. Let's hear if there's any burning one you can handle within the time you have left. Anything, a quick question that you think you want Stiepan to answer before he leaves for his next meeting? You are free to unmute. Well, it doesn't seem like so. So perhaps if you could just summarize as we leave.
Can I ask one quick question?
Yes, Eric, okay? Thank you. Yes.
So sorry. So Stiepan, I was hoping you could advise me. How did you test for the post-quantum resistance? Like how were you able to do that?
Thank you for the good question. So there are several aspects to that, but the most important is that to make this concrete EAF that we are speaking about in the slides that were presented, then there are, of course, other mechanisms in other circumstances, but I won't detail them here. We have reused components that are essentially standard today and that are essentially considered to be quantum safe if you take them individually, but that have never been combined in such a way that makes the whole actually quantum safe in practice. I hope it answers the question.
So, did you did the lab do this, or did you have to go to a lab?
That was the question. So very, very quickly, because I will really have to leave. Yes, we had 2 institutions look at it. First, Kudelski, which basically are competitors or bigger brothers, depending on how you look at it here in Switzerland. And then about a year later, the TÜV IT in Germany, and both institutions' results confirm that this is a sound way to improve existing AES to make it quantum safe. So yes, it has been confirmed by third parties. It's not only us claiming something, and that's also why we are able to slowly but surely reflect this in several standards, including the DIN specification as it pertains to blockchain that was mentioning, so the 4997. Thank you very much for your question.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stiepan, for your time. You are free to join the next meeting. Let's keep in touch. We'll send you emails. Would you allow me to share the slides that you gave me?
Yes, you can share, and as well you can add the reference to this DIN specification, DIN spec 4997, somewhere in a comment or something like that, so that people have the reference as well.
It's okay. I'll stay in touch and get that right with you. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Right. So yes, that was Stiepan, and I think he addressed a lot of the issues we have about cybersecurity and quantum. You can keep in touch with him. I think we're going to share the slide deck via the newsletter when he has corrected the references he was mentioning. So yes, Stanley, we'll share the slides when all those things are done. I hope it's not too late for you, but just bear with me. Let's do it right. Or you wanted to ask about backward compatibility in 5G security, but maybe another time. That's okay. I'll send those questions to him. If you want, you can send me all the questions you still have, and I'll send just a bunch of questions to him, and that allows him to answer at once, and we can make that part of our newsletter so that everybody, gets to learn about these technologies as well. Thank you very much for this meeting. Thank you very much for joining us from across the world, different time zones. I really appreciate it. I shared details on the conference, the summit that we are having. Please do a few things for me. Share it, share the RSVP link with your communities. We are obviously focused on Africa this time around, but we welcome an audience from across the globe. We want to interact with you guys. We want to create connections between people in Africa and those working in quantum elsewhere. So feel free to share that in your different countries and different places, and everybody's welcome to attend the summit. Yes, please amplify our posts whenever you come across them so that a lot more people learn about our summit. We want it to be well attended. We want it to it should just be a moment for us to showcase Africa and establish ourselves on the quantum tech map. I don't know if there's anything else that somebody's burning to say or to bring through, or else let's meet at the cocktail. Please try your best to join the cocktail if you can, if you've got a few minutes. I know the platform can be frustrating sometimes, but bear with me and bear with the network and the providers. We hope you are able to make it today. And yes, it's very important that after these meetings, we come together and personally, build relationships and learn about what each other is working on and how we can collaborate, learn and exchange together. So with that, yes, thank you very much. Gilead, I don't know if you wanted to say anything.
Yeah, good day. I was trying to log get into the platform last week, but it just wasn't working for some reason. I don't know. Is there any special requirement to be able to log into?
What device were you using to join?